A plastic bottle lands on a supermarket belt in Germany. The drink has a price. The cashier adds another, 25 cents. Not a surcharge invented at the till, a deposit the statute attaches to covered single-use beverage packaging. The receipt prints a separate line, Pfand. The customer pays both amounts and walks out with a closed bottle and an open obligation. Hours later, the drink is gone. Carbonation dies in a kitchen. The label wrinkles. The object is lighter, stickier, empty. In any ordinary market, this would be trash. It is not. Someone will carry it in a bag meant for groceries. Someone else will leave it on a platform bench because 25 cents is not worth the wait. A third person may take it because the law turned residue into a coupon. An empty disposable bottle retains a legally created cash value after the drink itself is gone. That is the contradiction hiding in plain sight at German checkouts. Germany's bottle deposit system has written a second price onto eligible containers. Return the bottle and the 25 cents come back. Abandon it and the money never returns to the person who paid. The rule is precise. It is not every bottle.
The 25-cent amount applies to covered single-use containers. Reusable packaging follows different deposit amounts and different circulation rules. A bottle designed to be washed and refilled is a different legal object from a one-way PET bottle stamped for a single trip. Follow this one container and a nationwide return market comes into focus. A mandatory deposit, a DPG marking, retailer take-back duties, reverse-vending data, deposit clearing that reconciles shops that sold the full bottle with shops that accepted the empty one. The drink was the product. The empty bottle is a claim. 25 cents is small. The coordination is not. The price signal changes how people dispose of packaging and forces manufacturers and retailers to participate in a return chain they cannot treat as optional. The bag rustles on a bicycle. The empty bottle knocks against a lunchbox. It sounds like nothing. It is booked like money. Watch the bottle leave the store. The liquid will vanish. The price will not.
Most visitors to Germany notice the behavior and miss the statute. Bottles do not travel home because a national character loves sorting. They travel because an empty one-way container was assigned a redeemable price, and because reusable containers were already living inside a different circulation. For a long stretch, the familiar German drink did not begin as a disposable. Beer, mineral water, and many soft drinks moved in glass, meant to come back, to be washed, to be filled again. Crates stacked in courtyards. A bottle that can be refilled is inventory in a pool. A bottle designed to die after one use is a cost that tends to vanish. One-way packaging spread anyway. Aluminum cans, thin PET, labels glued to vessels built to be light, cheap, and forgettable. The forgettable part was the leak. Once the drink was gone, the object had no second appointment. It could be dropped at a station, it could be mixed with ordinary household waste, it could leave the shop's orbit and never appear in anyone's accounts. Germany did not answer that leak with a jingle.
It answered with a deposit on covered single-use beverage packaging, set by law at €0.25, and with a duty on retailers to take empties back. The Umweltbundesamt, the Federal Environment Agency, documents the architecture in public: the mandatory amount, the return duty, the consumer refund, and a nationwide clearing requirement. Deutsche Pfandsystem GmbH, the DPG, independently documents the same spine for the one-way system: the legally required 25-cent deposit, a registered return process, reimbursement to the consumer, a reverse vending network, and deposit clearing. Those two records do not compete. They lock the same legal machinery in place from opposite desks, one public, one operational. The historical blind spot is the split. People speak of the German bottle deposit as if it were a single folk ritual. It is two legal regimes sharing a sidewalk. Single-use packaging under the DPG mark is a claim inside a clearing market. Reusable packaging is a circulating tool. The amounts differ, the logistics differ, the fate of the vessel differs. Treat them as one custom and the story turns into a postcard. In the reusable world, a bottle is supposed to survive as a bottle. It returns toward a filler. Deposits there are not the one-way 25-cent figure. They are structured around glass and crates, and they exist to drag the vessel back into a wash and fill loop. In the one-way world, the vessel is not supposed to live a second commercial life as a bottle. It is supposed to be captured, identified, and removed from the deposit loop so it cannot be redeemed twice. The deposit is not rent on immortal glass. It is a hostage payment on a disposable. That distinction was the policy's sharp edge. If single-use packaging could be tossed without friction, it would beat reusable loops on convenience every hour of the day. Attaching a uniform 25 cents to covered one-way drinks packaging makes the convenient object expensive to abandon. The person recovering the money must keep the empty. The retailer who sold the full drink must stand ready to receive what is left. On 1 January 2024, the net widened. The Environment Agency records an expansion of the deposit obligation from that date.
Additional covered single-use beverage packaging was pulled under the same €0.25 deposit, the same retailer return duty, the same consumer refund, and the same nationwide clearing requirement. Products that shoppers still pictured as ordinary groceries moved toward the one-way apparatus. The date matters because it proves the mechanism is not frozen heritage. The state can enlarge the set of objects that carry the second price. By 2026, that widening is no longer a coming headline. It is already on receipts. The law does not care about flavor. It cares whether packaging is covered single-use beverage packaging. If it is, the second price attaches. If it is reusable, another rulebook applies. If it is neither, the object can still end as ordinary waste. The checkout contradiction was never a mystery of manners. It was a decision to manufacture residual value by statute. Garbage used to mean an ending. For eligible empties, an unreturned container is a redemption that never happens. The bottle does not move itself. People with ledgers move it. First, the filler. A brewery, a water bottler, an importer pouring foreign drinks into German retail. For covered single-use packaging, this party cannot treat the container as a wrapper that ends at the warehouse door. The DPG process requires registration. The mark on the bottle is not decoration. It is the ticket that later counting stations will trust. Without the registered mark, the empty is just plastic. With it, the empty is payable. That is a business decision with teeth. Stay inside a reusable pool and the vessel remains equipment. Enter the one-way system and the vessel becomes a financial token that must be funded, marked, and later captured. There is no romantic speech in the filling hall. There is a line on a packaging specification. DPG mark, yes or no. The wrong answer turns a product into a container that shops cannot process and customers cannot redeem. Second, the retailer. The shop collected 25 cents at the original sale. It also inherited a take-back obligation for the kinds of one-way packaging it puts on shelves. A discounter with a large sales floor cannot pretend the empty is someone else's problem. A small kiosk lives inside a narrower duty, often limited to what it actually stocks, and feels every crate as floor space it does not have. Either way, the store is now a bank teller for trash. Space is the quiet obsession. Empties smell. They drip. They arrive in bags at 6 p.m. when the lane is already full. Staff could be stacking yogurt. Instead, they are feeding a machine or sorting by hand. The motive is not environmental poetry. It is compliance plus customer flow. People who come to redeem often buy milk on the way out. The return wall is a cost and a magnet at once. Third, DPG itself. Deutsche Pfand System GmbH is not a ministry and not a charity. It is the operator of the one-way deposit system, the keeper of the registered process, the house that prevents shops from having to barter empties like wartime stamps. Its job is to keep a legally required protocol identical for every obligated seller. Everyone who sells covered single-use drinks packaging has to be able to live inside that process. Fourth, the consumer. Some keep a bag on the balcony until it slumps.
Some never return, and for them, the 25 cents is simply a higher shelf price. The system does not require virtue. It requires that enough people dislike losing coins. Fifth, the collectors. In station underpasses and beside park bins, people open containers that others treated as finished. They are not in the DPG org chart. The price created them. A quieter faction stands beside all five: competitors. A shop that sells one-way cola in PET can be required to accept another company's one-way cola in PET of the same general type. The empty does not have to go home to its maker's logo to trigger the consumer refund. That rule blocks a shop from taking only its house brand and pushing rivals' bottles into the street. The attendant's reasons do not match. They only have to interlock. The eligible bottle does not rely on a cashier's memory. It relies on a mark. On covered single-use beverage packaging, the DPG identification is printed or labeled as part of a registered return process. The mark tells a machine, or a trained counting station, that this empty is a payable one-way container rather than a look-alike. Security features exist because 25 cents, multiplied by millions of units, is enough money to invite counterfeit labels. The process assumes identification must be tighter than a picture a basement printer could copy. Reusable glass arriving in the same vestibule takes another path. It is not supposed to be flattened as a claim token. It is supposed to remain a bottle. Different deposit, different handling, different destination. The legal split becomes a physical fork at the return wall. One port that will crush, one crate that will not. Morning. A supermarket in a German city. The sliding doors open on a row of reverse vending machines. A shopper lifts a bag that clanks with PET. One bottle from this story goes in first. The port accepts the neck. Inside, sensors look for the registered mark and read the container's shape and weight. The machine is not being kind. It is being strict. A crushed bottle, a soaked label, a foreign empty without the German one-way identification, a reusable bottle stuffed into the wrong hole. Each can fail. The bottle in this story passes. Rollers grab, the plastic deforms, air leaves with a complaint. Crushing is not theater. If the vessel stayed intact, it could travel to another machine and try to become money twice. Flattening the bottle as a bottle ends the claim. What remains is material for recycling, counted and no longer redeemable. A display adds 25 cents. Another bottle, another. When the shopper presses the button, a slip prints, ink in place of plastic. The empty has become a voucher the store must honor. At the checkout, the slip is scanned. The 25 cents come off the grocery bill, or return as cash. The person at the till does not need to know which factory filled the original drink. The protocol already fixed the amount for the covered one-way unit. Not every shop has a wall of machines. A small retailer may count by hand, inspect the mark, and store empties in a back hallway that was never designed as a recovery plant. The obligation still binds.
The hygiene still fails on a hot day. Residue inside bottles becomes a nastier companion as more product types ride the one-way rails. Sugar is one problem, dairy film is another. Machines jam, staff wipe, customers glare at a red rejection light. The rejection light is a climax of a petty kind. A bottle comes back, the port spits it out, no mark. Or the mark is already unreadable, or the container is not the type this store must take. The shopper argues. The employee points at a pictogram. 25 cents hangs in the air, unpaid, because the object failed to prove it is the legal object. Night. The machines are quieter. The data is not. Reverse vending counts move into the deposit clearing layer. This is the part that makes a nationwide return market possible. The shop that sold the full bottle is not always the shop that paid the refund. Without clearing, take-back would punish the store that accepts strangers' empties and reward the store that makes redemption unpleasant. So the system reconciles. Units returned, identified, and canceled as claims are reported. Obligated parties settle. A retailer that refunded more deposits than it collected is not supposed to eat the difference as charity. A first distributor that placed marked packaging on the market is not supposed to walk away from the token it funded. Clearing is not a mood, it is a requirement sitting in the Environment Agency's account of the system and in the DPG's account of its own process. The figures on those files are counts of bottles and cans. Each count is 25 cents that must sit in the correct ledger. Error here is not a philosophical dispute. It is a shop paying money it should not pay, or a manufacturer failing to cover empties returning far from the original aisle.
Now the wound. Not every bottle comes back. Some sit in household bins, mixed with yogurt pots that never carried a deposit. Some lie in parks. Some are picked by collectors and still re-enter the machines, completing the chain by a route no org chart celebrates. When eligible packaging is not returned, the consumer refund does not occur. That is the mechanical fact. The 25 cents charged at checkout does not fly back to the person who paid it. The claim expires through inaction.
Where the money then rests inside the obligated chain is a matter of contracts and settlement positions, not of campfire stories. What can be said without dressing it up? The refund trigger is the return. No return, no refund. That gap is the system's shadow price. It disciplines consumers who cannot be bothered to carry. A marked bottle in a hedgerow is a failed capture. A one-way container in the wrong waste stream is a token that died as litter. The price signal is strong enough to change masses of ordinary trips to the store. Fraud pressure never fully leaves. People try to redeem containers twice. People try to affix marks that do not belong. People try to feed foreign packaging to a German machine. The crush cycle, the registered mark, the shape recognition, these are answers from an industry that assumes temptation. Idealism said the public would return packaging because the planet is hot. Reality built a grinder that pays. Reusable packaging watches from the next crate. It never entered this particular grinder. Shoppers mix both in one bag and then get annoyed when the machine only loves one of them. The bottle from this story, if it returned, is already flat.
If it did not, it still carries a price no bin will pay. Capture is work. Failure is quiet. The wound stays open because a nationwide system can be both coordinated and leaky at once.
A market looks moral from the sidewalk. From above, it is usually a price with a procedure attached. Germany's bottle deposit system is easy to misread as culture. The earned fact is colder. A statute attached a redeemable residual value to a class of objects, standardized the proof of membership in that class, obligated shops to honor the proof, and built clearing so the honor could be transferred across competitors. After that, behavior moved. Not because a documentary narrated virtue, because the empty became an asset or a loss. That is the principle. If an object is priced only while it is full, the empty is an orphan. Orphans get dumped. If the empty is given a second price that can be cashed only through return, the orphan gets a chaperone. The chaperone may be the original buyer. It may be a stranger who lives on coins. It may be a machine that will not open its mouth without a mark. The chaperone is the incentive. A deposit is not a sermon about oceans. It is a temporary hostage. Pay extra at the moment of desire. Recover the extra only by delivering the packaging's corpse to an obligated counterparty. Fail, and the hostage does not come home to you.
Reusable loops teach a sibling lesson. There, the vessel is not a crushed token. It is equipment that earns its keep by surviving. Different amounts, different circulation. The point of keeping the two regimes distinct is not fussiness. It is to avoid pretending that a one-way bottle is a glass that will be washed. Markets fail when objects with different lives share one name. Look at what the arrangement actually buys. Customers carry, workers sort, suppliers mark. Competitors accept one another's empties because the rule would collapse if they did not. An industry of labels, logistics, and settlement files exists that would not exist if emptiness were free. That industry is expensive. It is also why the cheap path is no longer the default for covered one-way drinks packaging. None of this makes the arrangement gentle. Informal collectors stoop so forgetful people can feel tidy. Small shops drown in crates. Machines reject honest bottles with ruined labels. A legally created market still has friction, still have losers, still has leaks. The romance of circularity meets the accounting of tokens. Yet the board is visible once you stop calling it manners.
A government can mint a secondary claim that is valid only for empties, then require private firms to honor and clear it. The unit here is 25 cents, and only for the covered class. The method is the news. Attach a redeemable price, police the mark, force takeback, settle the claims. The temptation is to copy the mood and skip the machinery. Put a green leaf on a label, then act surprised when the empty follows gravity.
Remove any piece of the mechanism and the sidewalk performance collapses. On a wet pavement, return slips rest in coat pockets like unspent tickets. Ink instead of plastic, folded beside house keys. When a price has done its work, people stop seeing the price. They see only a habit. The habit is the residue of a rule. The machinery is the story. The habit is only the shadow. If a mark and 25 cents can drag a bottle across a city, which of our other empties are still invisible because no one priced them?